Could you at all describe Bay Area Hospital's current financial situation?
Sure. We're in a recovery process right now, and we've gotten the hospital to a break-even financial position, making us tiny bit of money, but it's been a long journey to recover the hospital. We lost about $24 million in the last calendar year. And we've had a number of years of financial struggle since the pandemic.
How were you able to break even? How did that all pan out?
We implemented a pretty aggressive turn plan, really focused on right sizing the operations to meet the revenue that we were generating from services. It involved doing, unfortunately, a layoff, as well as cutting down some contracts, removing waste from the organization where we could, to improve the overall financial picture.
When you say layoffs, can you give me a ballpark of how many layoffs had to occur to get to that point?
In the fall, we had one large layoff, and it was about 80 FTEs that we laid off from the organization. We did our
Now,
best to try to accommodate a good portion of those individuals into different open positions, and some people were able to do some early retirements. So the actual impact to individuals was a lot less than 80, but that was the number of targeted full-time equivalents that we went after to improve.
when we're talking about a rural hospital like Bay Area Hospital, um, what makes it stand out in terms of medical services in on the South Coast?
Sure. Well, Bay Area Hospital is uniquely positioned, and we serve as a regional referral center for about four different critical access hospitals. So for about 100 miles, we're the only facility where you can deliver a baby, where you can have advanced cardiac procedures. So it's really essential and critical services safety net for the South Coast. Most patients, if they need a higher level of care, have to travel over 2 hours to the Eugene market to be able to receive those services. So having services available in our rural community is really critical. We're a 100 plus bed hospital, which is much larger than the hospitals that are nearby that are sending patients to us.
I know the hospital in
Okay.
Banning is one of those that sends patients to you.
Yes.
It's Southern Coos Hospital. So, how do you differ from Southern Coos?
Southern Coos is a critical access hospital, so they're under 25 beds. They have emergency services and they do some inpatient stay, but for anybody who has more complex needs, they need to come to Bay Area Hospital.
If there were issues that financial issues to the point where there could be no Bay Area hospital, how would that impact healthcare overall on the South Coast?
Oh, it would be catastrophic. Bay Area and the mission that we serve in the region is essential. And if our hospital was not present, you'd see an increase in mortality and morbidity. People, it would be really challenging for individuals to have to travel for care to other communities, and time impacts outcome. And so if patients can't get, if they're having a cardiac event and it takes 2 hours or they have to be life flighted out, that length of time can have an impact on their survivability.
As far as House Bill 4075 that passed this legislative session, um, how does that impact the hospital?
Well, 4075 is like a lifeline for the hospital. It essentially works as the state providing a guarantee to the organization to refinance our debt, which was a huge anchor to the organization's recovery. And so having this support from the state legislature is critical, and it will help us in our overall journey to full recovery. It does not infuse any money into the organization. It really acts as a cosigner, essentially, so that we can refinance our debt. with a new institution that will stabilize the organization's financial ability to remain a full service hospital, having those advanced services so that we can serve out our mission in the Coos Bay region.
And with the passage of the bill, immediately an emergency was declared, in essence. Do you feel the situation is that dire?
If we, we have a balloon payment on that debt that we currently have with our lender. And in order for us to be able to generate the amount of cash that would be necessary to pay that bill, we would have to restructure the organization's designation so that we could earn increased funding for the hospital. So it definitely is dire because we would not have the time to do that. Additionally, we were sitting in default of that loan. We hadn't ever missed payments on the loan, but the terms and conditions of the loan were not being met. And therefore, we were at risk of the bank taking action. We were hopeful that they wouldn't, but clearly, anytime an organization is lent money, they need to make sure that their assets are secured. And so we were definitely at risk there. But the greater risk to us was being able to make sure that we can be stable and continue to serve as a larger hospital on the coast and not downsize the hospital to a smaller capacity in order to increase funding. If we had to take that measure and change our type B hospital, which is a 50-bed hospital and under, it would have generated about 16 or 17 million dollars to the bottom line, which would have been a way for us to generate enough revenue to pay off that balloon payment and keep the hospital from being in more troubles with the bank. So it was a pretty critical situation.
Now, with the bill passed, what's the next step for the hospital? What does implementing that on your end look like?
Well, the great news is that the bill contained an emergency clause, so that means we can move ahead quickly. We will be meeting with different lenders and banking institutions to find a new loan that can be secured with the backing of the funding that was written into the bill. So we have a lot of work to do with different lenders to work through the mechanics of getting a new loan.
As far as long-term financial goals, does the hospital already have those set up? And if so, what are some of Bay Area Hospital's long-term financial goals?
Well, ultimately, we have a more work to do to finish the recovery of the hospital, and that includes some growth opportunities and some development of bringing different specialists and physicians to the community. Recruitment for providers is really challenging, particularly in rural communities, and there are lots of specialists that are missing from the Coos Bay region that need to be recruited and brought into the community. So part of our strategy for continued financial performance and strength is opening access for patients and making sure that if they need to see a neurologist or a urologist or a specialist, they can get that access in the Coos Bay region. But that's going to require partnerships and aggressive recruiting and a development plan. And that's part of our longer term strategy so that we can stabilize the region and keep people local when they need to stay local.
And one more question for you. Do you feel like with this House Bill 4075 and just the trajectory of the hospital at this point, that you all are pretty much set up for success financially?
Yes, I think with our turnaround plan and with this bill and the support for our funding for our loan, it's a great setup for this organization to completely recover and have the ability to carry out our mission. We are so grateful that we had so much support both in the House and in the Senate. Representative Nose, Representative Boomer Wright, Javity, and Court Boyce, along with Senator Brock Smith all came together, Democrats and Republicans, to partner on passing this bill. And it was a lot of work to get it across the line, but we are just grateful to all of the individuals in the legislature who understood the needs and took action.
And is there anything that I might not have asked that you would want to share with our viewers?
I just think that we have 1,100 employees at Bay Area Hospital, and they're all counting on us to have jobs and to be able to continue to carry out our mission daily. And the community as well has been behind us all the way. This is a hospital that was, born out of the community. It's a publicly owned hospital, and there's so much passion and so much support for us to be successful. And we're just very grateful and thankful, not only to the legislature, but to the community who stood behind us and helped us along the way. You know, it's just, it was so wonderful to see how many people wanted to help. In the beginning, not everybody knew the right mechanisms and how we were going to get there, but they knew they wanted to do something. And this bill and the ability for us to refinance this debt is just one step in a puzzle, not a puzzle, but in a full plan in order to make sure that this hospital is here for the next 50 years. Bay Area celebrated its 50-year anniversary last year, and we want to make sure this hospital is here and growing and responding to the needs in this community. So I appreciate you making time and telling our story. The bill has to still be signed by the governor. But I see that Boomer put out a press release, and
Yeah.
he's a great leader. I was just inspired by the representatives who didn't even live in our district. The healthcare chair of the House committee, Representative Rob Knows, doesn't even live in our district. And he took the reins on this and made sure that everybody understood why it was so essential, not only for our community, but for all of Oregon. The coast is a playground for lots of people who go there to have holidays, play in the sand, go fishing at the beach, crabbing, enjoying our beautiful coastline. And having these critical services in case they're needed is essential.